Joining me now to talk more about President Obama's trip to Mexico is Ruben Olmos, an expert on international government affairs. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Elaine. How are you?
Great. You know, earlier today, President Obama said that he was confident that he could get the U.S. Congress to pass comprehensive immigration reform. He said that just shortly after landing in Mexico City. If that happens, would it be mutually beneficial to both sides, both Mexico and the U.S.?
Well, Elaine, I think that, first of all, it's important to notice that this trip couldn't happen at a better time. President Enrique Peña Nieto has been in office for just four and a half months. And I think his plan is to relaunch, like we saw this morning, the bilateral relationship. President Peña Nieto has been very straightforward and has explained that the immigration issue, it's a local domestic issue for the United States, for them to solve. And I believe that the Mexican government is playing a different role this time. I guess that they learned the hard way during the last 6 to 12 years, during the last two administrations, that if they got involved that much, it would be counterproductive. In this case, President Peña Nieto and his team are being very cautious, are obviously supporting this measure, and are being very cautious of what they comment about this topic.
Well, I want to add to that because President Peña Nieto obviously came from the other side politically. How different will this U.S.-Mexico relationship be going forward with this new leadership in place there in Mexico?
It's a very important question. I think that today the agenda was set forward. The new bilateral relationship will now focus more on the competitive side, on how to enhance competitiveness between Mexico, the United States, and Canada, how United States and Mexico can cooperate in other issues besides security and immigration. I believe that President Peña Nieto now has set forward a new path for both administrations to work. The Obama administration, we have to say, has been more cautious about that. I believe that they still are very concerned about the insecurity that happens along the U.S.-Mexico border and also between the Central American and Mexico border, which, as you know, is also a very dangerous border nowadays. I think that both administrations are being cautious of how they proceed, but there's no doubt that President Peña Nieto wants to change the whole script of how the U.S.-Mexico relationship used to be.
Ruben, I want you to talk to me about the significance of this visit because President Obama visits Mexico. It's the second trip outside of the United States since he was reelected. And you know, President Peña Nieto also visited Washington shortly after he was elected in Mexico. Can you talk about the significance of this trip for both sides?
Elaine, there's no question that the United States-Mexico relationship is one of the most dynamic and strategic relationships between two neighbor countries around the world. The amount of legal commerce that goes through our borders on a daily basis, the amount of trucks and tourists that go by through both borders, and the amount of exports that Mexico has with the United States. 80% of Mexican exports go to the United States. Mexico is United States' second and third most important partner after Canada and China. So I believe that there's no question that this dynamic relationship is always going to encounter problems, it's always going to encounter challenges, but at the end of the day, both administrations, no matter what political party is in power, both at the White House and here at Los Pinos, they're always going to have to work together. It's a strategic relationship. And now part of an important question that was raised today in the press conference was, how is Mexico going to work with the United States at the global stage? I believe that Mexico works very close to the United States, for example, during the G20 summit, is going to work very closely with the United States as they negotiate the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Both countries are close partners and allies at the global stage.
All right, Ruben, thank you so much for your time and your insight joining us from Mexico City. Appreciate it.